I'm proud to announce that the podcast is now officially sponsored by the fine people over at Chop Chili Company. Guys, this is some of the best chili you can get here in the state of New Mexico, and they are online as well as in stores. They can be found at Smith's, Albertsons, Sprouts, John Brooks, and Lowe's Corner Market. They have 3 amazing flavors that you see here, and they also have frozen green chili that you can get online. Go on over to the website, chopchilico.com, and get yourself some amazing chili today.
I wish I could be more help. As soon as live music came back, I ditched the live streaming. I was like, I don't know about this.
So I'm gonna get rid of this. And we're gonna go ahead and use that. And okay, speaking to your mic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Testing.
Okay, actually, we're gonna turn you back down.
Testing.
Okay, we should be good. We should be okay now.
Show.
What the fuck?
I'm understanding completely.
Okay. We run into new issues every time.
It happens.
It's beautiful.
Technology.
It makes me okay, let's
Doesn't have any audio though.
what doesn't?
This.
Try fucking with the knob on the cord.
Here, but what I'll do is let me turn my phone real quickly. Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, so we're back. If you want to type in the chat on YouTube, on that live dashboard, if you want to type in there, like if they can hear us.
They can. He just typed.
Okay, sick.
Nice.
Oh, we have someone interacting. Sick.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to start the.
Yeah, we'll just backtrack. Thank God we found this out like 3 to 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
And not
That'd
like
be funny.
30. Okay, no, but dude, oh my God. We did an episode. Wait, this is like a year and a half ago, maybe. Yeah, it was like back in January of last year. Okay. So maybe less than a year and a half. And really great episode. Like, I'm a big if you can't notice, I'm a big fucking comic book nerd, right? And so I had a buddy of mine that I had met, and we had him in. My other buddy, Joey, who does the production as well. He's a big comic nerd. So we're up until like 11 o'clock at night doing this podcast, and it's all pre-recorded at this point, and we're nerding out fucking left and right. And I'm having the conversation with the guy. He's saying something to me, and I see out the corner of my eye. You ever like... You see at a time like you see someone's facial expression just drop. Mm-hmm. They're like either like a guilty pet, or like they just they just really like fuck something up, or they feel like really guilty, like remorse. And I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry, man. What's going on? And he goes, hey, did you press record on the audio? And I was like, oh, you can't fuck with me like this right now. And I look over and we went for about 2 hours, 45 minutes of no audio. And I was like, fuck.
How long have you been doing the show for?
We started doing this October of 2020.
Okay.
So a little over 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah. We started it out up in the Heights of my old condo. And I mean, the first episode we did was like, the video cameras were these like little $20 things that literally came in these little white boxes that said video camera on
Nice.
it, right?
Yeah.
Like out of some weird ass warehouse where I had nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
The Wish camera.
no, for real. No, I wish I had a Wish camera. Is how bad these things were. And then so that was just audio only at the start. But then what we ended up doing was I got a lot of help, put some money in, and then we got these and started doing the live stream about 4 weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago.
Nice.
So yeah. So anyway,
Gosh.
so let's go back to what we were talking about.
Sure.
You work with Astral Entertainment. You've got some friends that started that. They all started the production line. Like, I want to hear about all this because, dude, like no joke. Over the last year, I have seen Astral Entertainment fucking everywhere. Yeah. Whether it's in ads for Electric Playhouse, stuff with Revel. My buddies were talking about a little bit earlier. Shout out to the fucking April Fool's podcast. They
Nice,
do
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
with them, and
Yeah.
I see this astral everywhere. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then so it's makes sense to me that Own the Days in that same,
Own the Days in
Same
the
thing,
same ecosystem community.
Yeah, perfect.
And specifically for myself, it's been nice to be able to work with both of the companies, brands, homies. But yeah, Astral Entertainment is the promotional company started by Astral Clothing, which is Adam and the homie Mo, and they started that together. And then once they kind of got a clearer vision of what they're trying to do as far as throwing shows, they got me involved because I currently and was working at Electric Playhouse at the time, and so throwing the shows was kind of my specialty, and they didn't have any experience doing that. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'd love to help you guys. And it was cool to be approached with an idea that, I mean, clearly had potential, but people willing to put the work in and having like the energy to do so. And so it's been, like you said, it blew up pretty well. Just from the hunger and the hunger to learn, honestly. I think all of us are just really hungry to learn and grow. And yeah, like you said, we've been fortunate enough to be able to do co-promotional shows with Electric Playhouse. We have some kind of in the works still. And then Revel, is like an awesome new venue. I'm really trying to take advantage of that space before everyone else does, because it's inevitable. It's a small city, and that's a nice place.
Yeah, no, what they've got going on down there is amazing. I've only been there, admittedly, for like the comedy shows they do, because that's what I like to go out and do a lot.
Sure, at Uptown Funk in the front there.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, the Uptown Funk stuff, and then they did like the roast battles like every couple months there.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
and that could be hit or miss, but the environment's fun.
Yeah.
And like you said, especially in a place like Albuquerque where it's small and not a whole lot to do. I mean, that's all you can really ask for. I mean, I can sit through, however long of comedians bombing left and right. Like, that's fine. But as long as it's a fun time to be there and the drinks are flowing, it's okay.
Sure. Yeah, no, that place is, and it's interesting. I think from a audience perspective, it's a really great venue, size of venue that we don't really have elsewhere in the city. But from an artist perspective, like being able to see the amenities that they provide, I think it'll encourage artists to keep coming back and spread the word that Albuquerque's not a bad place to come play,
Yeah.
Which I don't know, has always been the reputation. So.
Well, and that's what's sad. Like, now granted, it's not a reputation that's unearned. Sure. Let's be honest. Like the violence that spiked up and the crime and just in general, like the economy fucking tanked, especially like post-COVID. It's been insane. Yeah. But, and if I had to take a shot right now for every time I said this on the podcast, I'd probably fall over and die. But, I really believe it, and I'm happy to say it. There's this like renaissance of entertainment happening right now.
No, totally.
Whether it's comedy, whether it's music, whether it's just live events, like it's kind of sad, but like the idea of there being an event for a lot of people to show up to and feel safe, like specifically, like most importantly, that feel safe is such a novelty to this city. Yeah, that like people are just fucking dying to go out and do it. Yeah. So a place like Revel, I mean, the venues here in general are really stepping up their game. But a place like Revel being so new, and then they just built out the new, like, I haven't seen it yet, but like, excuse me, I've seen that they've built out this like back venue stage area. Right? Like, do you know how many people can fit in that?
I forgot,
because I saw a picture that looked like at least 300.
It's a couple hundred on that like patio area in the back. Yeah, it'll be a good summer spot for sure. Yeah,
and so having venues like that is so important. And then, in my opinion anyway, due to the economy, it's really forcing a lot of independent artists here to just rise up and do their own thing. Yeah. And like band together and like, hey, I'm going to promote your shit. You're going to promote my shit. We're going to team up and do this. And like, I mean, that's why like one of my fucking favorite people in the city, Buck D. That's why they do the Jokes and Jams thing down there, because they're able to merge both comedy and music.
Yeah.
And so you're, I mean, God, dude, the last time they did that, like I think a month and a half ago, they packed that place out. I think they had close to 600 people or some shit, maybe even more.
Damn.
And
That's
that's big for Albuquerque.
Yeah, no,
Like,
seriously.
If you're not talking about Isleta or the other casinos, that's fucking huge.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But leading up to your involvement in Astral, like what was your background in like entertainment in general?
It started mainly. That's a good question. I haven't thought about it as much. I want to say the start of like my legitimate experience is probably with Electric Playhouse. It's been at least a year, maybe 2 now that I've been working with the team. We're getting, like I said, kind of more proper training. In the past, I had experience. My initial start into the community here was with a group that my buddy Mark formed called Native Q, which the people still remaining, at least in my circle, included like Jaffo Damas is a good friend of mine. I don't know if you're familiar with his stuff here, but
The name rings a bell.
yeah, but it's cool that we kind of go back to those times, and then that was my involvement into kind of working my way into at first the hip hop community, making beats for everyone, kind of how I got to know people, and then go out to shows. And eventually we started to throw our own shows where it was more hip hop centric, some live music towards the beginning. And then I think we would DJ towards the end.
And what year is that around?
It's probably like 2015-ish. See, I base a lot of my timeline around, my daughter was born in 2015, so I'm like, was it before or after that? So I think it's around 2015 because it's like, I'm a dad now, okay, that's my responsibility, and if I want to do things for myself, I really got to try hard. And so I was like, kicking myself into overdrive of like, let's pursue what I want to do, because I'm going to take care of business, but that means I need to like work even harder to do what I want to do. And so back
then, what was that like? Like, what was the scene like? What was it like putting on shows?
I was still at that point working into the hip hop scene. It was interesting to learn about how,
Give me paper towels.
You promote a show and then you book it with a bunch of artists, hoping that these people bring their people to the show and everyone stays and it's a fun time. And that's where I learned, like, artist brings their friends, they show up, they perform for 20 minutes, and then everyone leaves, including the artist. And it's just kind of a cycle till the end of the night. And I'm just like, I guess this is where the community is at here.
Right.
And so that's like the vibe I got of community in that space. And so that was frustrating. And at that time of doing hip hop shows and like ourselves, I was also just going to electronic shows all the time, knowing that I really love the music, but understanding eventually that it's like so much emphasis on the production that most people take for granted. Like, oh, Subtronics at Revel was sick. It's like he tours with one of the best touring packages like in the country right now. So I'm sure it was, and just stuff like that. Like, people just don't really snap to like the details of what it takes to make this experience what it is. And so then I was like, I think that'd be cool to be a part of the behind the scenes, and it a mixture of my interest in that and knowing that big crazy crowds give me a little bit of anxiety, which is kind of weird because I go to all the shows all the time. But it's like, that's because I'm able to I like have an option for escape. Like, I don't have to be packed in the crowd for like 6 hours. So
right.
That's kind of like my justification for being at so many shows, is that I don't have to just sweat it out in the middle of the dance floor anymore.
No, for real. I'm the same exact fucking way. Like, I went to Sister last Friday to go check out Side Montero and LaMelo, and that was shout out to those guys. Side Montero's coming through on Thursday, and great dudes, great show. But yeah, saying when it started out, Yeah, I was kind of like in the front, but I was off to the right, like next to the wall. So I had something to like lean, like literally ground myself and lean on, And then
Totally.
as the night carried on, more people showed up. Side Montero packed the fucking
Nice.
the
Nice,
house
yeah.
out, dude.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, that's a lot of people. So I went to like the outside of the crowd where like the curtains are. I just and I observed from the side. I was like, oh, this is still a great show.
Totally. That's my style
So
too.
when you were having to like you and your like crew of people having to put together your own shows, what venues or what areas would you utilize to do that?
I remember the first little event we did was in Santa Fe. I forgot what the spot was, but typically, more often than not, and Vara Winery had this warehouse space that they would do for tasting, I think, and there's a few times that we would turn that into a little venue. And a lot of the times, as a smaller promoter, it's partnering with the establishment itself for
sure.
promotion and stuff like that. It makes the most sense. So it's usually at like a brewery, honestly, because they have more floor space than and they're more open to the late runtime as opposed to like doing something at a coffee shop,
Yeah.
So it's usually a brewery. The progression from that, I think things got a little tricky and the group didn't survive, unfortunately, but there, like I said, a few of us kind of ran with it. And from there is when I got involved with more electronic stuff. And I remember using Dialogue Brewery, which is now Juno. It's like First Street.
Yeah.
Near Lomas.
Yeah.
That's a cool spot. So yeah, a lot of breweries for smaller events.
Okay.
Typically.
Well, and even though that the formation you had in the beginning didn't end up like going the distance. I mean, there's a lot of things you learn going through that in the beginning, and I want to dig into that a little bit. Like, what were some of those initial humps you ran into, and like how's it like in retrospect? It's almost 10 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
how did that pay off now?
Yeah. It's, I mean, like every kind of unfortunate situation, it's a learning experience, like you're saying. I think at the time it was mostly just about demonstrating the fact that we all had an interest to be proactive about creating.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a whole lot of kind of judgment or critique that got in the way. It was more relationships personally. And so I think, that's just as important of a lesson as anything else. And so that was good to observe. Me personally, typically I navigate those things rather well. Like I both avoid and naturally just don't have to worry about too much drama. So I won't say like, oh, I learned from my mistakes. I just witnessed and watched how people operated and feelings getting hurt when they shouldn't be taking personally and stuff like that.
Yes. That's a very not generic, but that's like a very human problem. Especially when it gets into business endeavors and it gets into like there's like entrepreneurial based ventures. Like that's the lines between business and personal moves really get blurred, I feel like.
Yep.
And learning how to separate yourself from that. Like, okay, maybe the criticism I'm receiving right now is very important. Or maybe this business relationship didn't work out. Not because they don't like me, not because they don't like the way I dress or whatever it is. It's because maybe I don't bring the value that they're requiring yet. Or maybe I don't work as hard as they'd like. Or maybe this is actually working out in my favor. Maybe I shouldn't attach myself to these people.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think I guess it comes with maturity, being able to kind of be more self-reflective of like, what was my role in that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How did I fuck that up? Or maybe how did I do the right thing, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah. And then that's kind of, unfortunately, the bottom line was where we were all younger, less experienced, less patient maybe, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But from that, the buddy who started that collective got hired at New Mexico United right before they launched the whole organization as a photographer / digital content creator. And so he was doing the filming and stuff, and they needed music, and I think they wanted to source original music locally, and he's like, I know someone. And so fortunately I remember doing the music for like the very first video they ever put out at Isotopes, like before the season started. And so that is how I got my in with the team, was making music for their promotional stuff initially. And then it kind of, that evolved into doing a lot of their events. I would set up the sound and then DJ their events, which I still do. And then the last couple of years, pretty regularly, we will set up sound above the entrances at Isotope Stadium and play as people are walking in. And that's always a fun time.
That's
seeing
sick.
Everyone all excited.
Well, and it's not surprising, but the fact that you ended up getting, recruited into them because of a person or a previous relationship you had made, like that.
Yeah.
I'm learning that now, that is like the underlying thing in New Mexico is specifically
I think in general,
Albuquerque.
man.
Yeah. Well, with how like tight knit everyone, I feel like it's like especially so here though.
Yeah.
Like everything is so tight knit, and once you either enter a certain community or you start to kind of like dip your toe in the water, it's almost like that you find out how interconnected everyone is.
I think that's really the pro and the con of Albuquerque in my mind compared to like LA, where yes, in LA there's more opportunities regularly, but it's way more saturated, and so like
Yes.
it's harder to stand out and it's harder to get more involved. Whereas here, yeah, the opportunities are few and far between, but getting integrated into that community and like locating that community and getting involved is not very hard at all.
No,
which
for
is
sure.
cool.
And I think a place like this, like again, maybe I try to be very much of a realist, but the small optimist side of me is like, hey, maybe in like 5, 8, at the most 10 years, there's going to be a real thriving entertainment community here. And it starts with like a big booming economy entertainment. You know what I mean? Like not as big, but like starting to get almost big as like Austin did right now, right? Or Nashville or something like that, because we have the culture for it.
Yeah, no, totally.
And it starts with little things like everyone knows each other, and then it's like, okay, Dry Heat Comedy Club pops up, Revel pops up. There's consistent business at Launchpad, Inside Out, Sister, and all these cool venues. And then seriously, the breweries, like while all those places really hold it up on the weekends, the breweries are picking up the slack during the week.
Yeah.
There's comedy nights at almost every fucking brewery.
Yep.
There's small acoustic shows or smaller shows at other breweries as well. And it's just really cool to see how, and then obviously Electric Playhouse plays a huge role in that too. On like the EDM electric side, or electronic music side. It's just really cool to see how open to the local scene all the venues are, because obviously they have a big stake in it too. Like, you're gonna bring people in, we're gonna fucking sell drinks and food and yada yada.
Totally.
But they're also giving a platform to these people, and I think that's something that's not really being like highlighted to my knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. It's true. I do think they deserve more credit, because a lot of the times you either hear like, oh, that show is cool, and that's it, or damn, that venue sucks, the security, the sound. It's just like, it's so lopsided for the complaints compared to the gratitude, for sure. So that's a good point. And it's like we said, the economy is smaller here, that it's equally advantageous for them to have people try and bring people to their establishment. So,
well, and if I was granted, I don't know shit about running a small business or running a restaurant or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if I was the head of a brewery, or if I ran, if I was just starting Launchpad, right? Launchpad is like one of the more established, obviously, but like I said, I was just starting it or whatever. You know, with the smaller scene that we have here when it comes to music, I would be a little timid, because it's like if you're either, like, let's say you're in your first 5 years, 3 to 5 years, excuse me, and you're like, yeah, we'd love to have live music. Who do we pick? Like, who do we have to choose from that we can actually afford to pay, and who's going to bring it in? And it's like, well, fuck, what if we really advertise this? We really put as many eggs in this basket as we can, and they all break. The band fucking sucks, or our production breaks down, or whatever. Now it's like, oh, nice. Don't go see live music there because it's obviously bad. And then you have that kind of like, because word travels fast around here. And I feel like word travels fast as quickly for the venues as it does for the people that run them, the people that entertain there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then even in that smaller subsect of people that are like all the bands that know each other and all the comedians that know each other, like, like that's why I love being an outsider. I'm just a dude with a microphone. I fucking love it. I was having this conversation Friday night when I was out, and not a lot, but I'm starting to hear like the little tidbits of people that are at odds and the little cliques and you know what I mean? And I'm like, I gotta be honest, I'm just a dude with the microphone, man. Like I'll hear your story, but I got no dog in anyone's fight, and it's a beautiful position to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I envy that, but it's also my doing that I'm not in that position. I feel like I'm somewhat of a community, I don't want to say leader, but
A lot of people know you, dude. Like a lot. When I started posting that you were coming, I got a few DMs like, "Oh no fucking way!" What? I was like, "Okay, like sweet, let's go."
But yeah, like with that in mind, I try to conduct myself accordingly, and I do, like I said, from like work, day jobs to personal relationships, it's not hard for me to just observe the drama though. Like,
well, you know,
I'll just watch and be like, yep, yeah, I don't know, sorry, like, because I'm too aware of who can't work with who and all that stuff.
Well, and I am not a fucking perfect human being, and I will never claim to be. Yeah, right.
Totally. Same.
However, especially when it comes to strictly business stuff, you know, I know it's a fun thing to say, like, "Oh, I'm gonna get canceled," or "Oh, I can't say whatever." But it's really not that hard to be an asshole, and I understand that everyone in this room, everyone everywhere, is an asshole to someone.
Sure.
That's just how life works, right? You are not the good guy in everybody's story. Yeah. And that's something you have to accept, I think. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, if you're going about your business, you're not like staying to you can't really stay to yourself in this type of environment, but you just mind your manners, mind your business, help out where you can, connect where you can. I'm sure you're going to go wrong, but you're not exactly going to cause some damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's true. It's definitely an interesting time we're living in where it's like you really got to tiptoe around things, unfortunately.
Well, and then when it comes to networking, because I know like I'm still like really working through that myself.
You definitely touched on that a minute ago, and it's too true.
Yeah, like I'm working through it myself because I'm very much of antisocial person up until really the pandemic.
Yeah, I feel that.
Like I never went out before the pandemic. I could count on one hand how many times I went out, right? Sure. But now it's like, okay, well, I can only do so much networking through social media. I need to actually go out, see things, meet people. And then especially with like, I've been fucking blessed to have a lot of musicians on. And I'm like, well, if they're going to come hang out for an hour or two, the least that I can do is go support them and see their show. Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I never want to be the guys like, yeah, he asks everyone to show up, but he never shows up elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know, because that's someone no one wants to work with.
Yeah.
And I understand that. But it's still like a hill I'm getting myself over where it's like, fuck, I gotta go out, I gotta whatever. When you were starting out that first collective you did, and then even now, you know, what was it like doing your first steps into like, hey, we're going to talk to this brewery, we're going to talk to this venue we want to play at, and then what was like the evolution of that learning into now when you're in the position where you are who you are and you're like, this is who I represent, this is what we bring to the table. Depending on who you're talking to, I'd imagine it's almost like, what can you bring me, and then how can we really work this out?
Yes and no. There's definitely big players in this. A big player in the city that like makes a lot of other companies look like child's play, and so it's kind of hard to compare or compete against that. But to go back of what I was thinking about where you're talking, where like, see, I don't do as much of the business negotiations, and which is why the Astral team works so well, is because I'm like technically the operations manager. So like they
you
have
mentioned
ideas,
that. Yeah.
they plan it out, and they're like, make it work. And I'm like, all right, to the details. Like we miss a power cord and the show can't go on. Like that's the kind of shit that I have to think about. So like all the details. So like going back to like the beginning of getting into things, I would say after the initial collective, once it was up to me to break out into my own thing, I think the collective really helped me realize that I wanted to take myself and the art seriously. And so from there, it was all about networking, man, and like learning how to get opportunities, and I think that's a big part of it for me being like an artist in the space. You always hear, why don't I get booked? Like, and it goes back to, I think the internet really kind of got a lot of kids grasp on like the reality of things messed up, because like you were saying, unless someone's really popping or their art is really good, it boils down to the relationships that you make in real life. Like the people that you go hang out with and talk to and get to know. Like, oh, all the same people get booked. It's like, that's because they actually know each other. And like, that's just how it works.
You can't remove talent either.
Yeah,
like,
no, for sure.
Like, and I think that's something a lot of people that, I mean, you hear about it talked about on like bigger podcasts and stuff, but like firsthand, I'm starting to see it where it's like, yeah, you're right. The same 4 to 6 bands are getting booked a lot of different places. You're right. But maybe we should stop to think that they're really fucking good.
Yeah, no, totally.
And you can talk shit and you can say, oh, they're just a big fish in a tiny pond, or they know the people that run the thing or whatever it is. It was like, all of those are correct, and it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, no, totally. It's true. It's the talent here is legit, and I think that there's not enough hype in the community to have these hyped up, talentless people. That just doesn't exist here. So like the people that are doing well do well because they deserve it, and it's like for other people, it always kind of goes back to the crabs in a bucket thing, where it's like just pulling each other down.
Yeah.
Someone sees someone doing well, and instead of like, that was my thing. You see someone do well, you acknowledge you could say negative feelings, but the intimidation, the jealousy, it's like, it's natural to feel that. Move past it, and then you support, knowing that bringing them up, and they recognize you bringing them up, maybe they'll bring you up with them. And it's just like,
and most of them will.
Yeah. If they see that merit and the support's reciprocated, it goes a long way. And people take to social media with negativity. Why this, why that? And it's like, that's why. Like, shit. This
Well, everyone is allowed their own space and their own room in their private life, to complain and bitch and moan. You
that's
are
where
allowed
I'm at
that
too. It's not like I don't have my complaints. I just don't air them out.
Like you shouldn't. But again, the professional side of you, you shouldn't be airing that shit out.
That's a big part of it too. I think that helped me. That it's not like a rule of thumb because everyone's brand is different these days, but distinguishing the professionalism from the artist, there's just a difference for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then I think it's just really, really important for people to realize that just because someone is successful does not take away from either the success you have or the potential to success that you have.
Sure.
It does not take away from you.
Yeah.
If anything, it'll add legitimacy. Because again, if you are successful, you're good at what you're doing, or like you as a person, or you as your brand, or your band, or your whatever the fuck you're doing, if you are good at that and you make it known and people recognize it and you become successful, all you're doing is adding to the legitimacy of the genre, of the scene or the whatever
Yeah,
you're
no,
representing,
totally.
you bring legitimacy to that. And that's why it's so big for canceling to happen. It's like, oh, one of the biggest dramatic actors, one of the biggest rappers, one of the biggest rock stars went and sexually assaulted somebody, said some super racist shit for no reason. Like, that's why it's so huge that fucking Kanye made this weird flip and now he's this anti-Semite red
Not anymore.
hat.
It was like 3 days ago.
Oh yeah,
so,
shout out to 21 Jump Street, right?
yeah.
Like, cause what the fuck?
I saw that. I was like, really? What? Oh my God.
But that's why it's so crazy. It's like, how did one of the greatest rappers and music producers of all time?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, he said horrendous things, but you cannot take away from what he's done, right?
Yeah.
How did it go from that to what we have now? Like, you know it's bad when Alex Jones is the voice of reason in a room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to say where it went wrong. I always revert back to, have you seen the movie Idiocracy?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Everything
yeah.
is just coming so true. It's like, it's all the explanation there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, but yeah, my point in bringing that up is like, that's why canceling exists. And, you know, people getting successful, like, and you you said it almost verbatim because I've heard it firsthand. I've heard it in stories where it's like, you know, some of the, like the older generation and like the old heads of Albuquerque that, you know, for lack of a better term, didn't make it. And whatever they were trying to do, whether it was really here, it's rapping or fighting.
Yeah.
And they didn't make it, and they see other people being successful here, and they're either breaking out of Albuquerque or New Mexico, or they're about to do it, and they're starting to advertise that. It was like, hey, this is what we have going on. And they're showing this like continuing evolution. You know, their response isn't what you brought up. It's not like you should sure feel what you feel, but then support. It's, oh, well, you're better than me now.
Yeah.
You got money, so you're cool now. What's up?
Yeah.
And it's. I think that the newer generation is starting to lead away from that a little bit with how, again, because all the successful people hang out together and they're all like breeding off of each other and they're all moving forward. But, you know, since, you know, you've been at this for almost 10 years now, have you seen a clear evolution of like, okay, maybe this is really becoming the place to, like, this, like the entertainment, like scene collective here is starting to get a little less toxic, a little bit more welcoming?
Yes. And it's funny, you said a minute ago where I would mention it during the pandemic and people would like laugh at me, but I was like, yo, a renaissance is coming. Like, all this energy that people are just pent up at home, like as soon as we can do shows, I guarantee you everyone's going to be going to shows. And so like I was ready for that. Like, that's like why I have a little bit of understanding of OBS and stuff like that, is because during the pandemic it was like, okay, now you really got to try to be relevant and like on people's minds, so that when shows do come back, it's like, guess who was consistent and guess who put in the work when it was super shitty. And so I think that did really pay off. And so with that energy, I do think there's been more openness for community, knowing that like the only way that we're all going to level up is together. And if we keep fucking booking shows on the same nights and like saying you can't book that person and all this stuff, like it's not going to help anyone grow. Like, it's just going to help everyone kind of stay at their same level.
Yeah.
Which is how it's been, honestly.
And it's funny you bring up booking shows on the same night, because April 1st is packed.
Is it?
There's a show going on at Revel. I think there's two at Revel. One at Sister, one at Inside Out, one at Launchpad. I think El Rey might be doing something too. And at least for the literally the venues that are on Central, at least that like it's so like compact and put together that you can kind of hop and go see. And you know, when you're a little buzzed, you're a little more willing to like, oh, $10 cover fee, okay, 15 here, 10, you know, it's more likely to do that, because we're not big like LA where it's like $50-$70 to get into a club. You know, to go see a really good band, a good local band, you can pay $5-10.
And that's kind of where Albuquerque is right now, where it's doing well in the sense that there are shows. It's not like, why aren't there any shows? There are shows, but we're not quite to the next step of needing to coordinate dates and stuff like that because everyone's so busy that we don't want to take away from each other by booking similar artists on the same nights and stuff like that. Because I think like Colorado, from people I've talked to and just assuming like that's how it goes.
Really?
Where these crews are more established that I'm sure all of the head guys talk to each other like, hey, like let's make these dates work for everyone.
Like the heads of the venues.
Venues and big promoters, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would assume, and they kind of look at their calendar for the year. Because that's the thing, too. Here in Albuquerque, there's only like a few shows a year that are planned for like 6 months out. Otherwise, it's maybe like 2 months, 3 months. Whereas I think most cities, like, you could plan a year out for stuff for sure.
Right. Like I'd imagine it's like you'll plan for a year, but the general public's not going to hear about it until 6 months, 90 days out.
Totally. Well, and that's the thing, and me getting like behind the scenes, knowing that nothing's planned a year out here. That's for sure.
I mean, I got to be honest, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But then it's also like I don't think we're
Except
big
for
enough
Somos,
to
maybe,
have the need.
Yeah, no, totally.
You
That's
know
the
what I
thing.
mean? Like I don't think there's the need for it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, you know, if like for instance, because there's a lot of great people performing on April 1st, and I had to make a choice between two of my friends, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'd imagine if things were like you said, a little plan a little bit better, execute a little bit better. That's how you kind of just again you spread the love, and everyone starts getting their piece of the pie.
Exactly.
I want to get into a lot more of this, but I don't know what's been going on. But every episode I've had to pee.
Yeah, no
really
worries.
fucking bad, and
I'm kind of on the same page.
I'm never the one that has to pee. So we're gonna take a little break.
Okay, sounds good.
And so what were you saying right before we took the break? That he's got a fan in the chat.
Oh, shout out my homie Mike.
That's funny. So during the pandemic, everything shuts down because we brought this up a little bit earlier, starting to have to live stream, doing all that.
Yeah.
What are you live streaming? So what was like the brainstorming? What was the execution? What did you end up doing for? It's like a year, maybe.
Yeah, the gist of it is to give the experience of attending a set at home. So the rookie way to do it was to go live on Facebook, set your phone right there, and just do it.
Yeah.
Ideally,
I mean, the way I would have done it back then.
Yeah. And so, like, me recognizing that, I was like, all right, I got to learn I have to get like the software on my phone so that I could use my phone into OBS, and then I have to figure out which connections and which like latency and all that shit for my computer so that I can do audio into OBS straight from my decks with no delay. And keeping the image quality and like all that stuff was such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But then like obviously like little set design or something, put some lights up, and like I remember doing one where like I was in my garage and I set up the sound system, and obviously it wasn't even fucking plugged in, but with like a light, and it looked decent. So I mean, it's just like being active, just doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so like posting that up there, and it was cool. Like I was able to do like a mix for like EDM Train, which is a bigger blog and stuff like that. And so there were good opportunities in that regard, but yeah, the learning curve was steep, man, steep. I think most people couldn't hang, and a lot of people who were doing it legit had a whole team for that shit.
Yeah. Well, and that's okay. So first of all, since you're pretty well versed in using it, how is it crazy to you too that OBS is free?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was like,
is that crazy to you?
I can do that. Yeah, no, it's cool. I think could be obviously, and could have during that fucking year made a shitload of money, which I mean, I'm sure they do somehow, but it's cool that it's free.
Well, because like everything now, even like Microsoft Word, you can't just buy it.
Yeah,
it's a
right.
subscription service. All the Adobe shit that I use, subscription service. And I like, knock on wood, like I don't want to jinx it, but the fact that OBS is free, like the amount of shit that it can do and it pumps out for you, it's a lifesaver.
I know,
honestly.
it's cool. I think from what I saw recently, actually, is some of the music stuff is moving towards that subscription based, like plugins, which are virtual instruments, are moving to subscription based. Because I was thinking, like,
Such as like what ones did you use specifically? And then, like, what are you saying?
I think it's the Waves plugins are gonna move towards a subscription based model, and that's like the big one that I've heard so far. But aside from that, a lot of it was cop on Black Friday or Cyber Monday, because shit, I have Ableton, and that costs like Ableton 11 Suite was like $800 or something. It's like,
Excuse me?
sucks. I know, right?
And what does that fucking sing and dance
yeah,
for you?
I know, right? You just press
Jesus.
a key and it writes it for you. No, man, it's like, and it's deep too. Like, fortunately, my backstory is that my little brother was always into making his own songs, and like the only way you can do that by yourself is with a computer. And so he taught himself all that stuff, and I transitioned from doing more visual art to making beats, because I would hear him do it. I was like, oh, I could write some cool stuff. You just got to show me how. And so he did, and that's how I got into that. Fortunately, like the learning curve was not so bad for me, because he taught me all the basic stuff that I needed to know. But aside from that, like, Ableton is an $800 program. You open it up and it's a fucking blank sheet, and you're like, all right. Every time. I mean, if you have like your fucking, I am spacing it.
Well, I mean, that's exactly how Photoshop is.
Yeah.
I mean, because that was my big thing, was like, okay, well, I don't want to just like put up I still do it now for the clips. Whenever I just like, now that I can actually live stream, all my editing is, I don't need to edit anymore, which is such a huge load off my back. So now I can get back to like regularly posting clips, like I was pretty good about posting on Instagram, but it was once a week. Yeah. And just by the last month, I've seen all of the time or all the growth that I could have had by just posting more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know, right?
And so now that I don't have to edit, I can be a lot better about doing clips and stuff like that. And so, but when I was beginning, I was like, well, I don't want to just post like a screenshot of the conversation.
Sure.
I want to actually have like a cool-ish thumbnail, not too crazy. It's just a podcast. I'm not like gaming or like doing an info thing or an educational whatever. So
Yeah.
I got Photoshop. I was like, okay, how hard can Photoshop be? I mean, everyone uses it. If everyone's doing it in the entertainment, industry, it can't be that challenging.
It's the same thing with music.
I almost fell over. And then so I hit up my buddy. And I was just like, hey, dude, I can't do this. I know you can do this. I will pay you.
Yeah.
Like, I will pay. Granted, he was very generous, and he offered to help me actually start the podcast and produce for me. Like, he used to live in LA, now he's in Arizona.
Okay.
But and even like now, the templates I've been using for like the live stream.
Template, God, that was the word I was
okay.
trying to think of. Holy shit, thank you. Yeah, templates help a lot.
Yeah. And so he's a fucking master. And the template that I made for the YouTube and then for social media that I posted today, he's the one that made the template for that. I just popped in a picture and typed in. I was like, all right,
sure.
Picture.
Yeah.
But no, it's going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. It's so important whenever you're doing something creative that if you want to do it well, you're not going to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And you're talking about live streaming and how like a lot of live DJs because that popped off like crazy. Like I was never into I liked electronic music, but I was never like super into it. Mm-hmm. But even my algorithm during the pandemic was absolutely inundated with people on Instagram Live and Facebook Live doing their fucking sets.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then, just like you said, at first I was like, yeah, like this one person's so talented. But no, there's like 5 people behind the camera maintaining.
Yeah.
And there's probably an extra 2 people that help set up and all this stuff. And then
no, totally.
Now that I've kind of like dived into what it takes to really professionally do a podcast, God, have you heard of like Your Mom's House with Tom Segura and his wife? And I was like the Logan Paul guys, Full Send. They have a full production crew to show a conversation.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that is insane to me. No, seriously. But then you look at something like Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster. I mean, yeah, obviously he has a manager. He had someone like help build the studio and all that. That's awesome. But as far as like live in real time, it's just him and Jamie.
Yeah, right.
So it's that's what I love about podcasting, but I guess art and entertainment in general. What keeps me coming back is there's just so many different ways that you can attack your situation, and there's so much like ingenuity that goes into it. I'm sure you've had to do that yourself.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that like stands out to you as you've been?
I think just as in terms of building like a team or something, it's kind of like a more focused version. Could have been me. A more focused version of like you go out in life and you hope to meet like-minded people and maybe become friends, and it's just more concentrated. Like you go into this community and you all like the same kind of vibe and music, and then you find people more specifically that might like more particular type of music that you like and have the same kind of values or stuff like that. And so that is a big part of why it's so enjoyable to be active in the community, is just like having so many friends, but then also dialing in with people that are really on the same page and really making things happen. So that's why for me, it's like with nearly 10 years of doing stuff in Albuquerque, it's not until the last 2 that I've found a team that we're actually making things happen. And so nothing's ever guaranteed, but that process of finding people and getting to know them and work with them is definitely really rewarding.
And to the uninitiated, people that are listening to this, are like, yeah, I want to do something creative. I want to figure out like, they don't even know what they want to do yet, right? But
Sure.
they're hearing this like, oh, I got to meet people.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally speaking, what are some? And obviously, I don't expect you to like bring up names or anything, but like, as you're interacting with people, whether it's on a personal level or it's in that business space, you met them for the first time, this is your 10th time seeing them. For you personally, what are some like red flags? Like, oh, that habit that person has could really bite me in the ass later. Or the way they executed this situation, the way they set this up, that could really damage us. Did it now, but it could damage us later.
Sure.
Like, what are those like kind of mental like that comes up?
For me, a lot of it is more of just like a general feeling of judging someone's like level of responsibility, because I think you can't be too choosy in the nightlife. It takes a certain kind of person to be involved in that, and so you kind of got to take that for what it is. But for me, it's like, does this person look like they're taking it as seriously as I'm trying to? Or kind of trying to gauge motives. Like some people, just want to throw the party because they want to be at the center of their own party. And some people want to do it because, like, from my perspective, is like I've been involved in the community long enough that I can appreciate like what it takes and what it means to cultivate a space for everyone like that. And so that's always really rewarding. But it's tricky. It's tricky navigating getting into a community because it's like it's hard to see the momentum. Even when you're having momentum, it's hard to see or feel it. But especially in the beginning, building that momentum is the hardest part, and like meeting the right people. And that's the thing. Like you just kind of take every opportunity in the beginning, and that's how you learn what you want to do and what you don't want to do. It's tough, but like saying yes to more things than you say no to is how it starts. And I've finally kind of transitioned into a place where I can say no more than I say yes, which has taken a lot of work because in the beginning you got to say yes more than you say no.
Well, and I think what that sounds like to me, and I mean this in every way possible, I mean this in a positive, complimentary way. Yeah. It sounds like in the beginning you really checked your ego.
No, totally.
Because if you show up, new kid on the block, you could have all the, you can say you have, not even if you do have it, right?
Yeah.
You could say that you have all the aspiration in the world. But if you're turning your nose up at people, it's, no, I'm not going to work with, I'm not going to that, I'm not going to that. Like, sure, protect your vision or, have your standards. I'm not saying lower your standards, but I don't think anyone at any level is better than another person.
Sure.
But there are some certainly more qualified people that have been doing something for 10, 15, 20 years. And if they extend you an olive branch as you're in your first year, first 5 years, first whatever it is, and you're like, I'm better than that. It's like, but you might not
right?
be.
Yeah.
You might not
well,
be.
Good luck without that handout. Yeah, no, totally. I think that kind of ties into like my thinking that the internet's got these kids fucked up. Is another point of that is that the internet with this instant overnight shit, most kids don't know that you got to pay your dues. Like, yeah, maybe you get lucky and blow up, but other than that, the only way to do it is to pay your dues. And like,
fuck me, who was I talking about this with? We were talking about it on the podcast. I think we were talking about it with a new friend of mine, Josh, last week. I might have come up with the slums here and there, but even the overnight successes where they literally had really nothing to their name and then it's like kablam. If you just do a little bit of homework on that person, you find out that, oh, their parents knew these people. Their family members knew these people. They were friends with this person. Like, I went down a fucking rabbit hole because I hit shuffle my Spotify and LMFAO came on. And I was like, whoa, that's a throwback. What happened to them? Well, as it turns out,
I think
and David, if you want to fact check me on this, look up who is the uncle.
Yeah, it's the dude and his uncle.
Well, it's an uncle and nephew, but look up who is a family members of LMFAO. Because it's like the uncle's uncle or the uncle's dad or the brother, whatever, was like one of the heads at the time of Motown Records.
Yeah.
The people that put on like the Jackson 5 and shit.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh, you guys have like a smidge of talent. We can work with that. And they just shot them up.
Speaking from experience, I think it creates a lot of resentment in an artist, but the truth is half of it is like what you know, and the other half of it is who you know. And it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And like I said, there's rare instances where someone's just so talented or so popular that it doesn't matter who they know. But in most cases, yeah, that's not how it goes.
Yeah, so try to look into who who those two guys are related to, because it had like look up LMFAO Motown Records and it should come up, because I was looking into that. And that's what was crazy to me. And you know, and I had this conversation with the Sons of Harvard where it's like, well, in my opinion, and again, I'm in my infancy of learning how to do all this stuff.
Sure.
My whole thing is like, well, if I had to choose between instant success, not a lot of hard work in the beginning, you have to put in your hard work either way.
Sure,
you have to show up, you have to make the art, you have to do all this, you have to tour, you have to that is hard work. But the getting there wasn't hard. If I had to choose that, or hey, if we're gonna fucking work hard and we're gonna go at it. Yes, there we go. Okay, Barry Gordy. So this dude, he's the father and grandfather of these people.
Founded Motown.
Yeah. How crazy is that? The founder of so one of the big guys. So the dude who made Motown Records took these guys, shot them up. But if you look at their story, do you know how they broke up?
I know that they like sued each other. One of them sued the other. Yeah.
So they were on tour, and the nephew did some kind of stunt on stage that was like pre-planned, pre-choreographed, but it just went wrong, and he broke his he dislocated like a disc or something, and he was down for the count for the entire tour. Uncle's like, that's crazy. There's like millions of dollars on the table. See ya. So for the back half of this tour they're on at the time, I think this is like 2000 and being generous, 2012, right? Because they weren't around for very long.
Sure.
So they went, or he went. So half of LMFAO went and finished the tour, and that was the end of it. They tried doing their own spin-off stuff, and that really happened. But yeah, they end up like suing each other and butting heads. They don't talk apparently, and it's like, well, yeah, easy. That's the definition of easy come, easy go. Yeah. And then you look at another example I know about is Billie Eilish.
Sure.
I guess like her parents were like some like really good friends or best friends with the head of whatever record label signed her first. So then I'm not denying the talent.
Sure.
I like a lot of her music, but it's like, did she really become it? Like, because I've heard her and her brother. I think that's her brother that does her stuff with her, right?
Yeah.
They talk about how we threw this song on SoundCloud and then we woke up and it was viral and it was, oh my God, I don't know how it happened. Yeah. But it's like, no, okay, wait. Yeah. Come on now.
I think 8 out of 10 times you do some digging and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, not to take away from what they create, but plenty of people create very nice things, you know. So that's just how it goes, unfortunately.
I'm going to use that in conversation. All right, well, listen, plenty of people make nice things, all right? Calm down. Yeah. But no, I think it's important for people to understand that like, in the age of instant gratification, and we were just talking about it before we rolled the cameras, where I was bitching about the fucking YouTube algorithm because I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm. Hopefully one day I will get enough of it, but I don't understand any of it because I posted something, and within 12 hours, it did like 1.4 thousand, right? And for a channel like mine, that's not bad. That's pretty good, you know? Sure. That's considering I just literally take the same clip and right now what I do, I post it on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Mm-hmm. So that did 1.5 thousand. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. But then the next two I do barely break like 200 or 300, and I'm like, okay, don't know what I did wrong, what I did right. All right, whatever. But then the fourth one that I did in its first 30 minutes cracked 1,000. I was like, okay, is this like the luck of the draw?
Kind of, honestly. Like when I'm scrolling through Reels, you see something with 50,000 likes, and it's just some bullshit. And the next one you scroll, it's like you could tell they spent a lot of time.
Let's be honest, most of it is bullshit
and all that, and it has a half as many likes. And
yeah,
that's all I can settle on is sometimes you get lucky, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But not to tie this all together, I really do think that like, I think starting out with nothing or not a lot. And I'll be honest, I'm projecting. This is things that I tell myself on a regular basis.
Sure. No,
is like,
I think I know what you're going.
You know, it teaches you a lot of lessons. Yeah, you're gonna lose money. You're going to lose time. Like the value of time is exponential to me now.
It's
in doing stuff like this.
It's better to lose that time and money with smaller projects than if you were to blow up immediately, have a huge project, and learn your lessons.
And you
real
fuck it up.
way. Yeah.
Oh, and you fuck it all up.
So yeah, it's like that slow burn career that teaches someone for longevity.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. I think you learn about it for sure, but if you stick with it, because because I reach out to people, whether it's people I've become friends with, people that I admire, and I'm blessed enough to have people in my life right now that those things are one and the same.
Yeah, totally.
And the number one thing that I get back feedback wise is keep going.
Yeah.
It's just keep doing it.
It's true.
Like, and the problem that I'll run into sometimes is like, well, we had to cancel or reschedule a podcast for a week because my schedule got screwed up or their schedule got screwed up, or I've been ghosted a couple of times. And that just happens. That comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And then so now I'm left with, okay, I can either scramble and try to find someone to come on, or I can just put out some fucking nonsense, or I can just go dark for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, do I drop in the algorithms when I have a whole lot to post? Okay, sure. But at least in the meantime, while I'm still building my brand, still building my name, it's, if you're just putting out content for content's sake, I feel like people catch on to that.
Sure.
And it's like, all right, this isn't genuine. This isn't that. That was my whole thing with this, is like, I guess like a mission statement or like a purpose behind it. It was like, okay, no matter what I do, I want it to be authentic and I want it to be real. And that's why I started out with my friends. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, the people that I know how to talk to best are my friends. And,
Sure.
And one of my worries in doing the live stream was because if you look at someone's YouTube channel, no matter how long the video is, no matter what your intent is behind it, live videos are categorized different than uploads.
Okay.
And so if you look at my YouTube channel right now and you go to the live, you don't have to scroll down very far, or at all, I don't think. The very first live video, and I debate almost every day about taking it down. We did a live stream for the election back in 2020. And I thought I knew what I was doing. And the production, the shittiest production. We're in my condo garage. And we have these two tables. And we had them set up like an L, right? And on the very back, we've got an older laptop than that. We got it set up. And we're using the webcam as our only camera. And we've got this little like $20, $30 mic that I had that's plugged in. And we're just passing it around. And it just sounds like this the whole time.
Yeah, right.
And it's really bad. You can't tell what's going on. And, it's just horrible. It is absolutely dog shit. But then I look at that and I'm like, all right, I can at least take pride in knowing that's where it started and it's getting better.
It's all the same. There's so many more moving parts in having to put together a podcast, but in developing your craft, it's the same thing as someone picking up a pencil, It's like, yeah, it's going to suck at first, but you just got to keep doing it, and that's the only way it's going to get better.
Well, and I imagine that you've experienced a lot of that in your painting.
Sure.
That's something you had mentioned to me in the questionnaire, and I don't want to let you leave until we talk about that.
Sure.
So how long have you been doing that sort of art, and what does that look like for you?
My thing was growing up, it was always sports and drawing. And specifically, my first kind of true artistic love was graffiti. So just like the style and the colors and all that. And so I would do that, did a little bit of getting in trouble doing that and whatnot. So like that's where
Anything you can talk about?
It was seen last.
You don't have to. Do not feel pressured, man. You do not have
It
to.
was a dumb story, honestly. Like there's some times where we did some cool stuff, but the time I got in trouble was stupid. It's not even a worthy story, really. But it was art, and then for some reason I don't really know why I stopped doing art entirely for probably 6 years. I don't know.
So when did I want to hear the rest? But where did you start? Like, what year did you start? So I
Um,
like getting a timeline in my head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started drawing when I was a kid,
Okay.
like doing that instead of listening in class. Like that was me, just all the way up till fucking end of high school. And so high school was when I started to kind of be like, well, kind of good at it, so doing it more often, and did like some tattoo designs and stuff. But then after high school, for the most part, I stopped doing any kind of art at all, which in retrospect is kind of weird. At the time, I just maybe didn't feel motivated, or like I had other priorities, I guess. But I just lost the fire to create, because I think, as most people know, like it's just something that you have to do. You feel it. And I didn't feel it for a long time, but then I got into music. And so that's kind of when all this started, taking it seriously, first collective, all that, up until the pandemic, honestly. And I hadn't done any art from probably like 2015 to 2019, 14 to 19, something like that. And then it was, how do I entertain my child? And it's just like, I want to paint. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did some shapes with paint. I was like, this is kind of cool. And that's where I kind of found the style that I've been running with lately. But to be honest, that's like then and now is like the most I've ever painted. It was always drawing and like spray painting some stuff, but I've never like bought canvases and nice paint and all that stuff. So that's been cool to take seriously. And it's a lot easier to sell a nice canvas than it is anything else. So that's definitely a motivating factor.
So because I'm always interested in when startup and when things really kick off,
Sure.
and inversely when they die down a little bit or completely. When you had started to lose the interest in that in 2014 to 15, was it like a series of events? Was it just maturing? Not maturing out of it, but just
Sure.
growing up and you lose interest in things. Was it a combination?
Yeah, I think probably. It's interesting because I haven't really pinpointed why I stopped. I think maybe I just felt uninspired, because it's hard to feel, for me personally at least, like I know a lot of people feel inspired to create moody stuff in negative moods and stuff like that. But for me, I'd rather be feeling like I want to create something. And if I don't feel that way, then it's not really going to happen. And so maybe that's why just like buckling down with my daughter and stuff like that, it just wasn't a priority to me. And then also I didn't feel hugely inspired. It was never like something popped into my mind and I was like, oh, I'm going to make that. It just wasn't happening for me for some reason. And then getting into music, and then finally doing art again. It's interesting to me. Painting is probably the most enjoyable thing for me, more so than, I mean, DJing is really, really fun, but like it gets kind of, I weigh it against the nerves and shit that I get from doing that. It's because, like you said in the beginning, you were antisocial and you've had to take it upon yourself to kind of branch out. And that's a big motivating factor and realization for myself in DJing is like, being antisocial isn't going to get me anywhere unless I'm fucking amazing at making music. Like, it's just not going to happen. So
Right.
That's a big part of it for me, was stepping outside of my comfort zone. And I think that was a good lesson to be learned, but it's not comfortable for me, So the painting part where it's just me and the paint, and it's like an escape and it's like a form of meditation, So that is why I think I got back into it and I've held on to it because it is something that I'm better at. Like music, I do enjoy, and I have put a lot of work into being where I'm at with it, but I'm just more naturally talented at doing visual art stuff, so it's just easier for me to do. And so I've been sticking with that, although lately I've kind of been super busy, so it's hard to really dedicate the time it takes to do a fucking painting on canvas. But I've been enjoying that, and like I said, it's easier to justify because selling canvases is justifiable.
Well, and hearing you describe that and talk about it, it makes perfect sense, honestly, because those two things, DJing for a live audience and painting, are two such different sensations to not only just like you being there and doing it, but sensations to the body, like literally to your nervous systems.
Yeah, no, 100%.
That is such a different experience and such a different thing for you to digest that, you know, and hearing you talk about it, it's you get that, you know, whatever extroverted or like top energy thing you have inside of you, you get that out DJing, and then your recharge, grounding, more personal, intimate, you get that. I'm not even saying like get it out, but get it back inside of you, build it back up through painting and doing all that.
It's cool you say that because I'm actually due to paint probably tonight, honestly. Because
Nice.
I've been super busy and I have this commission that I need to work on, and I think I lose touch of how to recenter because you get so busy and it's like having so many thoughts in every direction, it's hard to know how to chill. And so I think refocusing on painting is my plan because like you said, it is a way to recharge, and it's something that I've been in the last couple months have been slacking on pretty hard.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the commitment it takes to sit down and make sure your brushes are good to go and all that kind of stuff, which is why I've been enjoying doing stuff on the iPad too, because it's just so much easier.
More streamlined. You just sit down, pop it open, and there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and that, again, like I said, like that just makes a lot of sense. And I think that is what's missing from a lot of people's lives.
Sure.
Is, and I tell people this all the time whenever I can, like, you need like it can be a hobby,
outlet,
it can be exactly, but at the end of the day, it's an outlet, right? You need something that you genuinely enjoy, and that, like, for me, like, we brought this up last week on the podcast, but there was this post that was on Joe Rogan's comedy club page, and it's like this drone shot of like a tour, right, of the club, but the voiceover is Bill Burr. And he's talking about how it's obviously pulled from one of his podcasts. And he's talking about how when he first started doing stand-up, that he, you know, doing that and getting up there and getting his sets in, like, even if he had gone, like, he brings up a story about where he went to this comedy club that's off the side of the highway in some podunk town that's closed down now. He went there, he did his set, but he had a brand new bit that he exercised. He did it well enough for the level that he was at. Got paid $8 for it. Went back for his shitty little apartment that he lived in with his girlfriend, who's now his wife, and he was doing a fucking dance in his kitchen about how happy he was, and his chick was happy for a second, but then got kind of sad, and he asked why, and she goes, well, I wish that I had a job or a thing to go do that paid me $8 for my time and made me half as happy as you are right now. And he goes, well, yeah, like, this thing that I'm doing outside of my day job, like, that's what gets me through my shitty, that can get me through my mediocre to shitty day job, because I have this kick-ass thing that I'm doing afterwards. Yeah. And if you work at that hard enough and you keep going, you stay consistent, you know, in one way or another, if you genuinely care about it, that thing is going to manifest itself into something greater.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people fall out, is in that beginning, right? Where it's like, well, this isn't paying me, or this is a waste of my time, or and they maybe they went into it for the wrong reasons, maybe they planned or executed improperly, but one way or another they don't stay consistent. And like, oh well, I can do it next week. I can do it next month. I don't need to do this anymore. Fuck it, we're done. What's the point anymore?
I feel like the purest point to start that helps is to have no expectation. Like, just create. Like, it might suck. Don't compare it to anything else. Don't think of like the direction it's headed too hard. It's just like do it and have no expectation. And as it develops, then you can kind of form like, oh, maybe I could do this with it or do that with it or make this much from it or whatever it is. But to start out with those intentions or expectations is just going to stress yourself out.
No, for sure. Like I think it's not bad to look up to people that are doing it better than you. I don't think it's bad to have a goal, but you're right. Expectations can go awry real quick. Mm-hmm. And I think that I've experienced it myself because I fucking love doing this. I had no idea I still barely have an idea of what's going on right now and like what this is. Mm-hmm. But especially 2.5 years ago, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
For sure.
And if you're doing something that you care about enough, it has to develop. Like, it's going to develop itself. Yep. Now, granted, you are completely in control if it develops negatively or positively.
Sure.
But with the way it was for me, and I'm interested to hear if this was the same thing for you, this was developing in a way because I ran into problems and I had to solve problems, and solving those problems made it better. Sure. Are you finding the same thing whether it's with your physical art, whether it's music, like because of these issues and you find the solution, the overall, like the bigger picture becomes better?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of like the overall ideology I try to keep is like a smart person learns from their mistakes. I mean, an even smarter person learns from other people's mistakes, and I try to keep that in mind too. But it's true. A lot of the obstacles that you face just prepare you in the future even better. And so it's important not to get too discouraged. It's so hard not to get discouraged, especially when you're dealing with something that's like your own creation. You have your own invested feelings and time and stuff. It's hard not to get discouraged, but it's true. You just gotta keep doing it, and you never fucking know what's gonna happen, honestly.
No, for real. Like you just hit the nail right on the head on a few points there. Like there are multiple times a week where I have to remind myself, like, why did I even start doing this? Like, so like, why did I fucking do it? And a lot of it comes out of my own laziness, because anyone who has been on this podcast or talks to me on Instagram knows that I fucking suck at scheduling.
Sure.
I am not the best
at
scheduling. I am not the best at getting back to people in a timely manner. I don't know why. It's something I need to get better at. But I pay the price, because when the time comes where I'm like, all right, dude, you've got less than a week to come up with a guest for fucking for next week, and you better pray to God these people still want to reply to you. And most of the time it's a yes, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I know that my my procrastination.
I was just gonna say
that my procrastination has led to lost contacts, and that's just a lesson I have to learn. It's like, hey, if you have strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I mean, who's gonna want to put up with you if you're lazy or if you're whatever it is?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a big thing for me, of trying to unlearn my shitty school student study habits of just procrastinating until the very last second, honestly. And so that still affects me for sure. Like, I've known about this set for 2 months, and here I am 2 nights before the show. Why do I do this to myself?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I'm aware enough to know that I should be doing something, and I just don't. And it's just like, that's the main problem. It's because it's like, I got a week till the show. I should probably get to it 2 days before.
And that's exactly how my brain works. And this, like, especially so with the editing, it's like, dude, why are you sitting down watching a movie right now? Or why are you playing video games? Why are you doing whatever you're doing? Because there are like multiple things you either have to do, like you quite literally have to do this to make this go forward, or there are some things that you could be doing right now to better it, right? Some auxiliary things that maybe don't matter as much now, but if you let it sit for a while, it's going to be important.
Yeah. No, it's 100%. I feel like I'm deep in that at this point, to where it's hard not to feel overwhelmed, like, but I deserve to watch a movie, you know? And that's the hard balance, because, yeah, watching movies and playing video games is not going to get you any closer to your goal. It's necessary to take that time for yourself, but yeah, it's not productive. And so, like, I always feel like I really should be doing something else when I'm relaxing, watching a movie, playing video games. And then when I'm doing something productive, I'm like, man, I need to take some time to myself. And that's the hard balance I feel like I'm at currently right now.
How long did it, because I'm still working through that myself too, but like, how long do you think it took for you to realize that there needs to be a balance?
See, and that's the thing, because in like the first 5 years, fuck a balance. Like, don't watch movies.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do. And that was really strictly my mindset, and I think it helped a lot. It wasn't until like fairly recently that I felt the need to create that balance. And I think it's just something that happens naturally, at least for me personally, where it's just like there's not necessarily any kind of identifying factor specifically. It's just an overwhelming or an all over feeling of kind of feeling overwhelmed by everything, even though everything's manageable. Altogether is like, it's a lot to think about sometimes.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And it's the balance there. And yeah, like I said, it's hard to pinpoint when that's necessary, but I think most people could probably recognize when it's necessary, because you're just not finding the happiness in what you were doing all the time.
Yeah, that's a tough thing when you start to
Burn out a little bit.
Yeah, burn out, and like when you're almost like falling out of love with what you're doing,
Yeah.
whether it is making you money or not, when you just start falling out of that creative intimacy that you have with your art, and it's like, oh fuck, wait, what's happening? Why is this happening? Have I thought about this before? And
it's true, and that's why like getting like a taste of what that means to have to rely on your creations for your livelihood. Like I can imagine like the stress on a lot of these bigger artists, where it's like you got to make something good, you got to enjoy it yourself, although maybe not as much, like the fans got to enjoy it more, but it's just like that expectation of having to have a whole rollout plan, tour, all this stuff. Like, how do you maintain that love for what you're doing? Like, it's
when
crazy.
it starts to get too businessy.
Yeah. And people be like, oh, they fell off. And it's like, there's a good chance they just quietly took a step back, like, because it's hectic. I think that's another thing with social media is, as a kid, it was always a little more self-conscious to be like sharing art. And nowadays it's like expected. You create something, why aren't you sharing it? Well, it's like, maybe I feel vulnerable, right? Like, I don't want to share that shit. Like, it's not easy. And I think a lot of people take it for granted nowadays. Like,
Yeah.
just put your creations out there. And it's hard not to get discouraged, like we were saying, algorithms and all that shit, comparing to the stuff you see, and like it's tough.
Well, the need to feel relevant, I would honestly say, because that's used a lot, but I would also say the need to be wanted.
Sure.
By all of these because at the end of the day, when it comes to social media, everyone is a number. You're a view, you're a like, you're a comment, you're a save, a subscription, whatever it is, right? People are a number when it comes to engagement and stuff like that. So the need to feel wanted by all of these different numbers, I mean, that's what the social media business is built off of inherently. And that doesn't make it evil. That just makes it a business plan.
Oh, yeah.
And when it's used for wrongdoings, obviously that can be a very evil thing. But, you know, that's what really affects for lack of a better term, the mental health of anyone, whether you're creating or not.
Sure.
I mean, what fucking blew my mind was during the Facebook whistleblower trial. They had her testifying before this court, and she was talking about how Meta, I guess, the combination of Facebook and Instagram, they had quantifiable data on how Instagram specifically affected and propagated and perpetuated anorexia in girls between the ages of 13 and I think it was 27,
Right.
26. And it's like, okay, so I get it. Like, obviously, because businesses, big and small, build their brand and get their marketing and they get a lot of their sales off social media, and that's fine. Like, I get that. It's just an added tool. But when we literally have data that can show that it affects the mental health of the users, whether they're trying to engage in your products or not, that there's something to be said for that. And so a lot of people do get wrapped up in the numbers, and they get wrapped up in like, this is my life. This is all I have to do. I have to get the likes.
Yep.
I have to get the engagement. I have to get the whatever. And it's like,
That's another balancing act, because there's plenty of artists that don't want to play the social media game, and there's plenty of people that's all they're enveloped in is the social media, when in reality there's other factors,
right.
So that's definitely the balance of being in touch with the reality and knowing that the internet is
A lot of people fucking need that.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting in touch with reality.
Yeah, but then the other half is knowing that a lot of these things function on this made up thing on our fucking hand computers, and like, you got to play that game.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the hard part for sure.
Yeah. Well, man, before we get out of here, are there any big events that you want to talk about, that you want to put out there people need to know about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say overall the project that's been bringing me the most joy has been working with Astral Entertainment. So check out Astral Entertainment on Instagram. Follow us and all the fun stuff we're doing lately. So far, I should say, it's been more heavier electronic music, just because that's the stuff that we love, and we've built a nice little community around that. But I think moving forward, we're trying to diversify a bit.
Quickly growing community.
Different kind of. And that's
don't short sell yourself, dude. It's growing. I'm not even a huge electronic music fan, and I'm seeing it everywhere.
Yeah. And that's kind of always been the goal is Albuquerque. We bring through a big headliner and the room is packed. It's cool, but you have a cool event on the weekend and there's not a whole lot of people there. And my goal has always been like, how do we get those people that love the big legit shows to come out to these smaller shows more regularly? And it's finally happening. So it's been a good growing time for sure.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, this has been a fucking pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
Honestly,
Definitely.
I really appreciate, like I said, I know you're a busy guy, so I really appreciate you coming down and spending some time. This has been an absolute blast. David, thank you again for producing.
Appreciate you, man.
You're the fucking man. And thank you everyone for listening and watching, tuning in. We will be back at it again Thursday at around 5:30 or 6. Side Montero's coming through. And until then, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.